Welcome to a video from digitalife.com. This video I'm going to be looking at wavetables here on the Korg Multi. The wavetables are a set of single cycle samples in effect that you can cycle through and produce amazingly interesting complex sounds here on the multi-poly. Also, the ModWave does the same thing. So many of the things I'm talking about in here, in fact, most things apply to the multi-poly. Multi-poly's got a few extra features actually, like wavetable A, B, and things like that, but it's pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to explain what the wavetable is. I'll show you and we'll hear it. We're going to show you some techniques for modulating wavetables that make some interesting sounds. I'll show you some of the built-in wavetables that are in the multi-poly, and I'll also show you how to import custom ones, because there are some really good ones out there. Wavetables.lol is a great source. Keith there is a great source of wavetables, so they're worth checking those out. I'll touch briefly on making your own, but I probably do a separate video on that because it's quite a complex and there's a special tool for it, but I'll touch briefly on that as well. So let me switch to an init patch and let's have a look at some wavetables here. So here we've got the analog wave there on the multi-poly, a simple sawtooth wave. So analog synths, which is what we're looking at with the classic sort of oscillator on here, models traditional synths. So you've got sawtooth, you've got pulse width, and you've got triangle, and then you've got some interesting ones like the sawtooth ones, the detune ones. There's also a wave shaper, but that is definitely a separate video. So those are the standard ones. So what they did, I think it was on the PPG wave and some others, to introduce new sounds is effectively sample, but using very tiny amounts of memory by sampling a single cycle of that waveform. It means that you could store them in a table and then you could switch between them. So you could get some interesting, almost sample-like sounds out of it, but early 80s, very little memory used. If you think of the Korg DW8000, of which we've got those wavetables built into here, they're on the front panel. There's 8 on the, I think it's 8 on the front panel, might be 16. They're on the front panel there, and you can choose. There's a sawtooth, and there's one that sounds like an organ, and so on. And you can step through that. You can choose them on your patches on the DW8000. So if we go to digital on here, this is the digital oscillator now. We can have 4 per layer and 4 layers. This is why we can produce really complex sounds, because we can modify all these parameters through motion sequencing, LFOs, envelopes, however we want. So here we see a whole list of wavetables. We'll have a listen to some of them later in the video. But by default, the first one is a basic one, so you choose it. It's a sawtooth, just like when we do the classic. The difference on here now is that we can sweep between different types. So we go to a square wave, a triangle wave, and then a sine wave. And you notice it smoothly transitions between them. So we can have a halfway point between a sawtooth and a square wave. You can sort of see that you can sort of half transition through them. We have got this cross width feature which enables that. You can turn it off and then you'll hear it different. You hear it directly switch between them. So that's how some of the older synths had it, like the DW. You couldn't sweep through them or anything, you could just have the one. The PPG, you could go through them. I don't think it had the crossfading. What they had was wavetables that were already crossfading. We don't need to do that because we've got a nice crossfading method. So that's the very basic. You can switch between them and you can sweep through them. But then we've got all these extra controls over it as well. And that's where it starts to get interesting. And of course, we've got a combination of all these different wavetables. So we can modify, as you see, I'm modifying that position there. Switch through them. I could assign a controller to sweep through them. So I could sweep it through with, say, the mod wheel. I know it'll also do pitch, so I'll just knock the pitch off for a sec. So that's one way of doing it. But what's more interesting is perhaps if we assign some automation to it and have let's go for an envelope. We've got loads of envelopes. I'm going to use the pitch envelope for this because I know I'm not using it for anything else. I'll apply it full. So go to our envelopes. I'm going to put a curve on it, so it's going to go through the wavetable and back down the other side, like so. So it's going to go up and through, so it's going to modulate that. You hear it come back, it goes back a little quicker. Now it doesn't sound too much on there, but what if I went for a slightly more complex one? This one, A, I, E, O, U, does vowel sounds. So you can hear the vowels there. Now things are starting to get interesting, aren't they? And if we have a look at another one, these AW ones have got some nice effects on them, or nice complex ones. So you can see it on the screen. I'm not sure if my camera's picking that up. You can see it's morphing through those waveforms. If I turn that crosswidth back off again, I'm going to switch it back to the vowel one. You can hear it doing it sort of that. It's more digital now. Put the width back on. It's a smoother transition. But like I said, these are quite nice as well. So this is quite a nice one. Almost, you can hear that sort of PPG type sound. It sounds a little dull at the moment because the filter's wide open and with no effects on it. But that's just one thing you can do with it. That's the position, and that was using the envelope. The other thing I could do with that position is use an LFO. We've got multiple ones. Let's stick with using pitch for now. So I'm going to use the pitch LFO and then go to LFOs. You can hear that there. If I do sync notes and free running, that'll just carry on running now. So that's an example of using an LFO on it. We've got these other controls. We've got this morph control as well, which also does some interesting things on it. For that, I'm just going to switch. For that, I'm going to switch examples, and we use out 16. I was mentioning about the DW8000 with 16 waveforms on the DW8000. Turn the cross width off and now sweep through them. You'll hear it. You hear the electric piano one. There's an organ one. The sine wave. You see them on the front panel. We can put our smooth transitioning back on for now. Now this morph thing, what that does is it's got a morph mode, so it's going to stretch that waveform. So if you see that, it's stretching that waveform. Another one is to flip it. Just flip it like that, which is almost like pulse width modulation, isn't it? But it's actually just flipping it around. And we've got a mirror. And straight away with this, you can, if I apply a bit of LFO to that morphing, so we've already got some interesting effects. So you can see we've got those on there. That does sound pulse width, isn't it? Especially if I soften that. Play with the envelope. No effects on here. It's quite a nice soft sound, that, isn't it? Because it's digital. If I paste that, and we get dual ones on here, and let's just make the morphing slight out of sync, and just so it's a big variety. Thanks, very good. And I can even go as far as one in left, one in right. No effects on that, so that's quite a nice feature. Put that back. I'll just disable that one for now. I'll open the envelope a bit. So that's the kind of thing you can do with these, with the morphing on there. So a single oscillator gives you quite a rich sound on there. So, and I do like combining them as well, but of course you can combine them with an analog classic oscillator. So I could combine it with a sawtooth on there. So there's the classic one. There's the one we get from the DW. Level those out a bit. So you can combine all these things, but it gets interesting when you start doing I think when you start modding that position as well. So let's, we've looked at envelopes. We could use velocity to make the position change. So let's go with the controller. We could use poly after touch. I've got a key stage linked up, so you could use poly after touch. But let's go with velocity, and I'll put it to full, and that's going to modify the position of the wavetable depending on the velocity. Let's just change this down for now. So just by using velocity, it changes our waveform. So just another interesting for way of controlling that as well. So we've got, so we can also combine other things to it. Let's change that one. I'll show you an example with the chaos in a second. Or what we could do is we even got something like the motion sequencer. So let's leave that on there for now. I'm going to switch to a different waveform. Okay, I switched waveforms now. Let's take that velocity off. So this is our waveform now. So if I go to the sequencer, you can do it directly here in the editor, or you can do it on the keyboard. I'm going to do it on the keyboard. I'm going to pick sequence A, and all I need to do is just adjust what I want to do. So that's the position. So I'm going to go. So it's recorded that. And I can also record a pitch as well. I've got a little effect on there, and I can get clever with it and start messing with these envelopes and triggering the envelope via the pulse of the step pulse. Let's you can hear it's sweeping through there. just changing that waveform will give us a completely different effect. Let's open that filter. So there's lots of different ways of controlling that through all these parameters you can control through multiple ways, and of course you can layer everything up. The sync still works and everything else, and crossfade, the sync still works, the cross mod works, and rig modulator all still works. So you can sync up an analog wave, sort of a classic wave like that. Let's just take that sequence off for a sec. With each you saw, I can sync it with that other. So exactly as you can with the other oscillators. One other thing as well you can do, you've got this Wavetable modifier, which you can do things like reduce the steps. So here is one that gives it an 8-bit vintage vibe, which you can hear those artifacts that come in as it emulates that older technology, which I think is, especially if you're recreating a classic synth, then that's actually quite a nice effect on it. I think even get it on the side. In fact, if you look on the screen now, you can see what it's done. It's made it got that sort of effect. There's some other interesting ones. Like you can even go down to 4 steps, or organ style, which if I change the waveform to back to the sawtooth, it does sound organ-like now, doesn't it? And if you look at that one with 4 steps as well on there, you can see the effect it's having as well. So there's loads of them to play about with on here. So let's have a quick look at some of the waveforms. So the width ones are quite good. There's a saw and there's a sine, and I think there's a pulse as well, which is probably most useful. So if I go pulse width in the middle position, you hear the square. But there's your classic pulse width modulation. And of course, if I modify that through, let's go back to the envelopes. Let's go to, so if I use the pitch envelope, so you can adjust that. So there is the classic sort of pulse width. But the other one that was quite useful is there's a sync one. So as it switches that wavetable, you get the sync effect. So if you want to do sync using this option there, which I had a switched on, but we won't use it because oscillator 2's off. If you use that, it takes 2 oscillators to get the classic sync effect. This way, only uses a single oscillator. So you've got the sync effect with a single oscillator. You can have 4 at once, so you can perhaps produce more complex sounds. The ratio one, I think, brings the harmonics in like that. Which I think is a really nice effect as well. If we have a look at some of the others, you can see there are loads of them. Some of them, like the vocal one, which you heard, and some additive sight sound. That's quite a nice sort of analog synth one. These airwave ones are great as well. So So it's just a question of going through them and finding ones you like as a start point. I'm just sweeping through them all. You don't have to even sweep. You can just find the fixed position. So there are some great ones on here. So all the DW8000 ones are in here. You've got some FM ones on there as well, some vocal ones. You can see them categorized on here, but I suggest check them out. The bell one. So there are some really good ones on there. It's just play with them. There's a width, triangle width one. Also included are these vector synthesis ones from the sequential vector synthesis. When sequential went out of business, a lot of the staff transferred to Yamaha, including Dave Smith, and Yamaha owned part of Korg, and a lot of that technology went into the Wave station, and the vector synthesis waves are in the Wave station, and here they all are in here. So you can cycle through those. I'll show you an example of that in a second as well. So, but all those wavetables are in there. Let's have a look at an example. What I've got here is 4 oscillators running the vector synthesis waveform. One at 0, one at 34, one at 67, one at 100, and I've set their levels to be controlled by the XY on the chaos pad. So I thought it was a nice sort of throwback to the vector synthesis. One of the other wavetables that's on here is this WS Mini, which is from the Wave station, and there's a patch, and I've got that here, patch here on the Wave station, the virtual version. You can hear that. I think it's here. It's in one ear because I just soloed it and what they did on this, and I think this is, you can see it's in part of the Ski Jam patch, the classic one. Let me just go back to the performance so you can hear it all. That's brilliant, that, isn't it? Pete Ski Swartz has been on the podcast, so go on our website or on our YouTube channel, you'll see the podcast where Pete actually talks about he created this patch. But anyway, this bit is the bit I like, and if you solo that and then go into the patch, you can see it's actually a wave sequence. So the Wave station has samples in, not single waveforms like the wavetables, but samples, and there you can see it's actually got all those samples, and it's cross-fading between them all to get that lead sound. And I think they're actually mini Moog samples. And anyway, what the Korg have done is they've took those single waveforms or single samples, convert them into waveforms into the wavetable, and you can sweep through the wavetables. So I managed to reproduce that sound by sweeping through the wavetable and reproducing that sound. So I've saved that one. If you do like that sound, I've recreated it on the Wave State and on the Mod Wave. They're both in the Genesis packs. So if you and probably in the Wave Station packs as well. So if you have a look on thislife.com, you'll see those packs. So that was one of my favorite types of sounds on there. A couple of the examples I've got, you heard at the beginning, the hybrid bell. So that's using a combination of wavetables and analog sounds, and it's got velocity control on it. Here's one that sweeps through. Which is quite a nice effect as well. So, like I said before, there is loads of wavetables in there, and you can pick through them all, and they're all different positions, and so there's loads of varieties you can get, but you get some really complex sounds out of it as well. You can also import your own. To import your own, they need to be WAV files that are 2048 samples per waveform, 44.1 kilohertz in mono. There's a tool actually that you can get called Wave Edit, and there's a special mod wave version of it. I'll include a link in the descriptions. Here's the tool, and you can do a new bank, and then you can import WAV files. So I've got a TX7 bass sound. We can hear it now. Turn the play on. I'm not sure what that will sound like, but I can export it. We'll call it TX7 WAV. So let's import. There it is. Now there it is. It needs a bit of work. So let's look at wavetables on the multipoly. It's a lot more complex. You can go into it and create some really rich sound and a lot of movement on those sounds. So I recommend diving into it. I'll look at some of the presets, get some wavetables. The ones that are built in there are all brilliant. You can import your own. I'm going to do a separate video using Wave Edit. I'll remind myself the process, and I'll do a separate video, and we'll have a look at how you can sample your own sounds and then bring them in. I've done it before, so I'll show you that. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you